Let's see how to properly remove your throttle body from your motorcycle and then clean, degrease and install it back to restore its performance. We have an MT15 with us, and looking at the condition, you can say the owner of this bike hasn't maintained it that well, and also it has a jerky throttle response, which could be an issue with the throttle body, which we have never cleaned it at all. In order to get to the throttle body itself, we need to first start with removing the seat, followed by all the panels that is holding the tank and the side. All the screws that I'm removing on this side and shown in the video is applicable to be removed on the other side too. Start removing all the bolts that is holding the panel on the left hand side, followed by the top plastic panel which is held by 2 Allen bolts. Next, remove the same size Allen bolt in the front hand side too and take the side panel out of the motorcycle. These panels are just held with the plastic clips, so make sure that you don't damage it and pry it open carefully. Now again, start removing all the bolts that you can see, and also there are plenty of screws to be removed. Once it's done, you can remove the top left hand side panel as shown. Keep in mind not to damage the plastic clips that is holding this entire tank panel onto the motorcycle. Now you can remove the top plastic cover. Next, remove the 2 Allen bolts holding the entire lock set cover in place. Once this is done, you can remove the cover out of the motorcycle. Now remove the screw that is holding the tank assembly onto the motorcycle from the rear end. Repeat the same process on the other side too. Now there are 2 more Allen bolts which is holding the entire tank assembly onto the motorcycle, but this one is pretty tight. I'm using WD-40 and waiting for 5 minutes to free up the Allen bolts. Remove the Allen bolts along with the bracket. Now lift the tank carefully and let's start disconnecting the connectors, starting with the fuel sensor. Press the connector clip and gently pry it open, and if it's pretty stuck in this case, along with pressing the clip, you can also use a flattened screwdriver to gently pull it down to remove the connector easily. Repeat the same process to remove the fuel pump connector too. Now to remove the fuel line, you need to pull this red tab to unlock it and gently pry out the fuel line as shown. Now finally, you can remove the charcoal canister hose and followed by the water drain hose that is connected to the fuel tank. Once all these connections has been disconnected, you can take out the fuel tank out of the motorcycle. We are only halfway done. There are a lot more components to be removed before getting access to the throttle body itself, which is there between the intake manifold and the airbox. Okay, let's continue the process. Start removing all the 4 screws holding the air filter cover and carefully remove the air filter cover along with the air filter. Now remove the 2 bolts holding the entire airbox onto the chassis. Now loosen the Allen key bolt which is connecting the airbox hose to the throttle body. Once this is loosened, carefully wiggle and gently pry out the hose and lift the airbox out of the motorcycle. We are almost done. There are 2 more bolts holding the entire throttle body onto the motorcycle engine itself, which we need to remove. Next, we need to disconnect the accelerator cable, and this is pretty straightforward. Just loosen the bolt that is there and disconnect the cable from the wheel which is connecting to the butterfly valve. Now next, let's disconnect the map sensor connection and followed by the throttle position sensor connection as shown in the video. Now one last connection to be removed is the hose connecting to the canister to the throttle body. With that, we have successfully got access to the throttle body, and you can see the condition of this with a ton of carbon deposits onto the butterfly valve. Let's look into it in detail, but before that, let's close the gap onto the intake manifold with a clean piece of cloth before we work on the throttle body itself. Now onto the throttle body itself. Let's start removing the gasket or the O-ring from the throttle body, making sure that you don't damage it. Now this particular throttle body is without an injector, as the fuel injector is directly mounted to the intake manifold of the motorcycle engine. But few motorcycles like Bajaj or KTM has the injector directly mounted onto the throttle body itself, which makes it to be cleaned in a professional manner. If you want to see how to clean your fuel injector in a detailed and proper way, comment down below so that I can make a separate video on the same. Now in order to clean the throttle body, I'm going to use this throttle cleaner spray, and I'll leave the link to purchase this in the description below. Now before getting into the actual cleaning part, let's brush out all the dust and grime which we don't want to introduce into the throttle body itself. Now you can look at the carbon deposit that is there on the butterfly valve and all the internal surface of the throttle body. To clean all this deposit, start spraying the throttle body cleaner as shown. Now if you are on a tight budget, you can also use petrol to clean this, but using a dedicated throttle body cleaner can help to drastically remove the throttle deposits, as you can see. Now using a brush, agitate all the carbon deposits, and also with the use of throttle body spray, clean all the dirt and grime and all the deposits out of the throttle body. I'll fast forward this process so you can see and enjoy. one last final rinse with the throttle body cleaner, and your throttle body is clean and ready to be installed. You can see the condition of the butterfly valve now, which is pretty much clean and in a pristine condition. Make sure that you dry the throttle body in a pretty clean cloth before you move forward with assembly and installation. And for your reference, this is what we got from the throttle body itself, and you can see the amount of carbon deposit that we could manage to remove. This could be a reason for all the jerky throttle response that you get even after using a lot of fuel system cleaners and even changing the fuel filter. Alright, let's get back to the assembly. Do not forget to clean the gasket or the O-ring with a mild solvent like WD-40. Use a clean piece of cloth to wipe it down. Now make sure that you align the gasket onto the throttle body slot which is made and install it back onto the throttle body. The next step is to lubricate this gasket. I'm using WD-40 again as a lubricant. Spray some and gently spread it using your fingers on all the surface. Now let's remove the cloth which we have inserted into the intake manifold, and let's start installing the throttle body back onto the motorcycle. Starting with connecting the accelerator cable, again it's an exactly opposite process of how did you remove, and it's pretty straightforward to do the same. After connecting the throttle cable, make sure that the throttle is properly working and it is free in movement. Now connect back the throttle position sensor followed by the map sensor as shown. Now finally connect the canister hose and insert its clip. Now aligning the throttle body onto the intake manifold, insert the two Allen bolts which we removed before and tighten it in a crisscross pattern. Make sure that you don't over tighten it, which can damage the intake manifold mounting thread, so make sure that you tighten in exactly the way that I'm showing in this video. One final time, make sure that the throttle is properly working and there is nothing which is getting stuck in these plates. Now install back the airbox and connect its hose as shown. Don't forget to tighten the hose clamp with the Allen key that we loosened before. After cleaning the internal surface of the airbox itself, let's install the air filter and the air filter cover back onto its place. Tighten all the 4 screws as shown. Now install the 2 bolts that we removed which holds the airbox itself onto the chassis. Keep the tank back and start connecting all the connectors. Starting with the fuel line itself, insert the fuel line as shown and lock its clip. Now install back the fuel sensor connector and followed by the fuel pump connector as shown. On the other side, install back the water drain hose and followed by the canister hose and lock it with its clip. Now the final step is to install all the tank panels back onto its place, and it's the reverse order of the removal. I'll do this off camera and I'll get back. Ignore the speedometer, this need to be replaced anyways, so I'll show you how the throttle responds now. I hope this video was informative enough, and if you people like this video, please do consider subscribing to Archaeonics and also follow me on Instagram for more such interesting content.